Dun, 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 dun. Okay, I think we're live now. Hi everyone. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are joining from. Just permit me trying to tidy up things here, and then we can get on to speed. Thank you for allowing me to take the lead again on this conversation. It's something that has been ongoing for a while now, and without you, this would have been a very, very lonely one for me because you can imagine what it takes to keep coming back. It could have been a very lonely one, honestly. But the fact that I have your input, I have listeners, I have people to come back here to, join me on this series is something that has really, really been helpful. And I want to say thanks to you for always coming to join. Sometimes I find that some of you are unable to join, but you still make out the time to check what's happening here. And I really want to say a big thank you to you for prioritizing joining this series. And today as we come approach the end of this series, I think the last of this series is going to be happening next week. And it's been an interesting ride. And I just must say a big thank you to everyone for everything. The constructive inputs and a lot of other things that have happened over time has really been very helpful, even in helping me to see clearly and then to come to a point to appreciate the culture and the tradition that we have as a people in Africa. It's really mind blowing how much we can learn about partnership, even from our ways of life as a people. And it's really, really mind blowing. And it's something I really would encourage you to also take some lessons from. And so today we are going to be discussing something really, really interesting. And I'll tell you again, what is going to happen today is going to be juicier, it's going to be bigger, it's going to be better, it's going to be more enlightening than any session you've had in this series because it's an accumulation of knowledge, of wealth of experience and all. So today we are going to be talking about how you can align values, how you can align goals, how you can align visions for sustainable partnerships, how to align values, goals, visions for sustainable partnerships. And the assumption in today's series is that a partnership has started and it's an ongoing relationship. And then, how can you make sure that you are leveraging values, goals, and visions? How can you make sure that you are aligning all of these components as a tool towards making that relationship to be long lasting, to be sustainable? And that's what we are going to be considering today. Let me start with a story from an African perspective. See, when a child is born in a typical African family, stories are usually built around that child. So sometimes you find that these stories sum up the child's name sometimes, such that every time the child is called that name, it serves as a reminder to that child about the things that surround the child, whether the circumstances surrounding the birth of the child, whether the historical trajectory of the family, or some other things. It could be the life assignment of that child. Now, this is something that is rooted in the African way of life. So you find that these factors they go a long way in then impacting how that child and even how the parents handle their parenting as a role and how that child is also groomed. So you find that it also impacts even the choices that are made on the subject of the child's welfare and many other things around that child. Interestingly, I recall having a very lovely friend who I'm still so much in touch with, great friend of mine who most times, whenever he's confronted with any situation in life, he would just beat his chest and then he would mention his name. It sounded awkward to me initially, but I started seeing the light in it, how over the years of his existence, he's been groomed to have that assurance that, look, this is who you are. And that was ingrained in his name as a person. And so very interesting, something that many parents do. And, this also reminds me of how much parents, how much they put in that kind of effort into naming their children in the context of what is to come, in the context of what had happened, or in the context of something around the life aspiration or the life goal of the child, as it were. And then there's this other friend I have, for instance, in addition, who I recall he had a very troubling experience, a very troubling moment, and he told me something. He said in those moments, he kept reminding himself of his name and the stories that have been told him by his parents. I mean, these are very powerful things, and it just simply goes to show that naming a child is something very, very strong. So, and for me, as somebody with a context, and a context from scriptural background, I see a lot of these things, and it just reminds me. Perhaps this was exactly what someone like Paul was telling Timothy at the time, that look, you need to remember those things that have been said about you time before, that has been foretold about you. I think that was really the context as well. And then you find that he then started telling Timothy that, look, when you recall all of these things would help you to walk in the parts of those things that have been said about you. And I think that Africa is getting something right in that context. So the question I would then ask as we take that into today's conversation is, how do we then make sure that we are aligning values, goals, visions to then help us have sustainable partnerships? And what can we learn as well from this African perspective, this African context, and way of life? See, when two or more people come together to start a business, there has to be common goals. Very, very crucial. And you must have visions and also outline the missions. And I've discussed all of this in my past sessions, so you can also check them out. But what I'm trying to bring out is, having done all of these things, how do you then make sure that the values, the goals, and the vision align to help you create sustainable partnership? Now, I think and I believe strongly that my proposition, which I'm going to be sharing in this series, matches exactly what would form a perfect solution to help you achieve that. And I call my proposition brand culture. I call my proposition brand culture. Put in a simple way, brand culture happens when you're able to infuse your vision, infuse your goals, infuse your values into your daily activities, into your products, into your solutions, into how you get results and what you do every day. When you have an infusion, it's just like a formula. When you have all of these things brought together, what you have done is to build a brand culture. And what you've simply achieved is to then create something that defines that relationship, that partnership. And I've seen a lot of partners, a lot of partners. I've seen them think, the way that a healthy partnership can be formed. Perhaps is through documentation, through getting lawyers to put together partnership agreement. Now, I am not saying that this is not the way to go, but what I'm saying is that sometimes the letter kills. It is the spirit behind that agreement that would give birth to a healthy relationship. So if you think that just because you've been able to think out as many things as possible, and then you've been able to put them in writing, who does what, whose privilege and responsibilities and all of that. If you think that that partnership is guaranteed to survive or thrive by reason of that partnership agreement, then you may be living in error, because agreements do not make people. It's as said that laws don't make people. The man wasn't made for law. The law is there to achieve certain goals. The law is there to achieve good results, and they are supposed to be tools towards achieving those good results. And this brings me to a story I may have shared in my earlier session. I once, told the story of how a new leadership was put together, and then the ESCO ship, different people, they were given the constitution of the organization. And by the time they were having their first meeting in the leadership, every person came with a constitution that was presented to them during the handing over. And as the overall leadership was dishing out an instruction, this fellow had to quickly check the constitution and then corrected the leadership to say, I'm sorry, this is not part of the things listed here as my job responsibility. And in essence, what am I saying? Sometimes we miss the fact that the essence of the agreements being done, they are meant to achieve goals. And you cannot overemphasize, or better still, you can't even you cannot be too careful about these things. Sometimes you miss out on certain details, and sometimes you find that in that relationship you need to be as flexible as possible, which is very, very crucial if you are going to be building a great brand. So the point I'm making is that agreements are made to achieve results, and laws are made for humans were not created for the law. And you need to remember this thing I just said today, just in case you find yourself on that route where you are having issues because you are defining things by reason of what everybody has signed. You will be killing the spirit of that partnership by following the letters of the partnership. And this is one of the errors we commit as a people, especially from the context of African partnerships. Now, one of the core elements of brand culture, which is what I'm talking about today, and which I often also share with entrepreneurs when I have the opportunity, is what I call the heart of storytelling. Now, what's this about in essence? What I'm saying is that you should be able to place the story of that partnership. You should be able to place the core values, the goals, the visions before everyone, and make sure that every person sustains their gaze on that story. When you do this, what you have successfully done is to have one mindedness, having a one mind towards achieving that which is set before everybody. I'll go back again to the African context of things. I remember an African adage that says that a river that forgets its source will soon dry out. And what does this mean? Now, the essence of this is that when partners forget or deny or reject the common goals, the values, the visions that brought them together in the first place, I bet it with you that that relationship is heading towards shipwreck, is heading towards its demise. And this is what has happened with many African entrepreneurs that have forgotten the basis of that relationship. It's just like a relationship in a union, between two people. When they begin to forget what was that thing? What was that thing that brought chemistry in the first place? When they begin to lose touch with all of this information, then they begin to go towards what I call divorce. And I do a lot of divorce anyway, and I've seen that 90 something percent of relationships, they head towards that because most times, yes, emotions bring people together, but the logical things behind the emotions are not dealt with and are not brought into play when everybody needs to forget the emotions of why they came together and then begin to look at the logical thing they can make out of the union. And this is one of those things that has really hurt us over the years. So take the example of Apple and Toyota. I tell you that these brands are brands that understand brand culture, and they've thrived on brand culture across different eras in time. Toyota has a brand culture which is built around its employment values. And then you talk about Apple. Apple has a brand culture that is built around its products. All of these things, what they end up doing is they keep the stakeholders energized, and it helps everyone. Everyone, when I say stakeholders, I mean the employees, I mean the employers, I mean the board, I mean even investors. So you find ethical investors, people pumping in their energy and money, even people defending by every means these brands because of what they stand for. So there has to be something around what you stand for, which is then put together in form of a story that every person can move with, in form of a story that runners can see and say, this is the very reason, this is the basis of our existence in the first place. So you need to put all of these things together. And what this would help you achieve is it will help you to attract the right relationships. It will help you to attract the right investors. It would help you to, attract those relationships that will go the extra mile with you across different seasons of life, whether in the dry season or the wet season, whichever season you want to call it. These people, these relationships will stay true. And what you do to achieve this is to leverage what I call the story of that brand, the story of that partnership. Leverage stories around your values, around your vision, around your goals, and then ensure that the story is relevant to what you do in that partnership and why you guys are also in that relationship and how you are also achieving results. This is very crucial, and I think I need to talk about the how part. You see, the how part of what you do is, what will, sometimes you will find that that how part is going to change. But when that how part changes, the spirit behind that how will continue to remain. In essence, how we achieve results can change. It can change because of technology. But the spirit behind how we do things will continue to remain because that is the culture, that is the value that you have brought together. So, yeah, and how do you achieve this? You can have pictures, you can have things that help the mind, the body to align to that which you hold true as a partnership, which is very, very crucial. So it could be pictures, it could be antics, it could be documentation, whatever that would help everybody to be on the same page about what is being done is what you need to make sure that you are writing down, and which is very crucial. Now, in Africa, again, something I cherish so much is our storytelling culture. We have a strong storytelling culture in Africa, and these are survived across different eras. As long as I can imagine, even beyond at the time I came to be. So, for instance, there was an era whereby after dinner, you'd find that the village would gather together. Members of the community would congregate and they would gather together around a central fire to listen to a storyteller. The storyteller in this context is somebody that then begins to share stories around things that help the community to thrive, around things that help the community to build itself around its culture as a people. So, it's a very, very interesting thing. But unfortunately, you find that in this era, people have started getting so busy that we are losing touch with that storytelling, which is something that connects with us as a people. So people have started losing touch, and I can tell you some of the factors that have led to this. Some of those factors would include electricity, for instance. Well, in those days, you know that what you are using is lantern. Even before lantern came, maybe you are using firewood, and then everybody converts in a place where there is a bonfire. So what you know today as bonfire, I think, has its context around something that Africa, and not this may even not just be about Africa, but it has something around the context of something beyond, before preceding the time that we find ourselves, and we are losing touch with that as we begin to emphasize the right to privacy, right to be left alone. Let me use that word because that's what it is. But we are losing touch with that communal sense of things, and gradually that is also taking away a lot of benefits and advantages that we used to have. What other thing? Well, don't be shocked. I think the fact that we now have TVs in our private homes is also one of those things that has made us to shift away from the communal living, because, well, children now want to just go on TV, and then even we've gone past that epoch now. We've gotten to that stage where children are having everything on the go. So they check online, use the iPad and all of that, and then everything is just on the go. So these are common things that we experience every time. And what this does is we've started growing apart, and gradually we are getting into that era, or better still, I would say we're in the era of independent living. And it could be a very lonely one, because we are no longer recognizing the communal strength that we have as a people. And it's also from it we begin to even leverage and learn all of these things that I'm sharing with you today. So unfortunately, that's really what it is. But the good thing is, which I want to bring out of this whole thing, is that notwithstanding that we are losing touch with that communal strength, there is still that place of the family as the nucleus of the society. In essence, you still find in a typical African family, when the conversation is really, really serious, you'll find that the parent is likely to wake the child up at the middle of the night. Now, if you ever experience this, just let us know in the comment box. But the father or the mother, as it were, would likely wake the child up, have conversation, or you find a parent taking the child on a stroll to have serious conversation. In essence, what has really happened is that we have still found a way and means to pass on the tradition and the history, which is a very, very crucial one. So for Africans as a people, the role of that storyteller is to entertain and to educate. In essence, the essence of that kind of conversation is really to pass on something. It's really to pass on something that would help towards on having an understanding that will build the relationship. So, and don't be shocked, sometimes, even in all of these things around African way of life, you find that exaggerations are also part of it. So, exaggerations sometimes are brought into the stories as a subtle way of depicting the seriousness of the culture, which is to be shared. Thereby, at the end of the day, the whole essence is to make sure that results are achieved. And the question I want to ask you is, in this kind of situation, do you think that it helps to achieve the results? I think so. And one of the reasons that I really think so is my person as a being. I'll tell you something. One of those reasons you will not find me spit on the ground is because as a child, I had tales of getting sore throat whenever you just spit around and then somebody matches the spit. So because of that, no matter how irritated I was feeling, I would just rather, instead of just spitting anywhere, maybe I'm looking for a flowing gutter or looking for something. But this was how we were brought up. Now, were they telling the truth? The answer is, well, it wasn't the truth, because man, I don't think that when somebody steps on matches my spit is when I would have sore throat. Now I have learned better. But did it help to achieve results? Yes, I think it did. So, stories are in essence how we remember things. Stories are how certain things are communicated. When I remember that I do not want to have a sore throat, it makes me to remember what not to do. So it's something that we need to learn and then build brands around. So if you're running a partnership, or you are thinking of going into partnerships, you have to invest in storytelling. You have to invest in making sure that you document moments, and then all of these things are things that help you in that relationship to keep reminding yourselves of why you are in that relationship. And remember what I said, the how may change, but every other thing remains constant. Even the what I would call the rationale behind the how, it will remain constant, which is very, very crucial to what you are doing. Very, very crucial. So you need to build healthy stories around that partnership. And when you build healthy stories around that partnership, you are more likely to build a sustainable relationship that will transcend your existence. And I think this is also one of the ways that you can build a business that will be relevant across different ages, different times. And if you are like me, hoping and looking forward to getting more partners into that which you are doing, I would want to encourage you today that one of those ways that you can align that you can build a sustainable partnership is to align values, align goals, align visions into what you are doing. And the way to align all of these things is my proposition I'm sharing with you today. You need to build brand culture, and building brand culture, one of the tools, which is what I've shared today, is to make sure that you are investing in the heart of stories. Let everyone that is a stakeholder in that relationship, let them have access to what connects to you as a partnership. And as you do this, you'd attract the right relationships, you attract um, the right stakeholders, and you find that things will just begin to fall in places for you. Thank you. My name is Eitayo Ogunyemi. If you found this helpful, please remember to share it with people. Remember as well to ask your questions. As we approach the end, I'm going to tell you what next on this journey because I'm passionate about Africa. I'm passionate about African emancipation. And this for me is my contribution towards that which I've seen for time to come. Thank you once again. Do have for yourself a wonderful, wonderful week ahead. Bye.